Hi, this is James Zhang, and today I'm here with Sean.Scott of Marcus and Millichap, and today we're going to be talking about a new deal that just came out called Gemini Village. So, Sean, maybe to kick it off, give us a little bit of your background, and we'll start jumping into this deal.
Sure. Thanks so much, James. Good to be here. Work with Marcus and Millichap, founding member of our secondary markets team here in the Dallas office, working with Nick Llewellyn, Bart Hoover, and the rest of our awesome team. And I've been with this team for a little over 5 years now.
Great. So let's jump into this new deal, Gemini Village. So,
Great.
people local to Dallas probably know where Waco is, but let's talk about for people
Sure.
outside of DFW, where is Waco and sort of what's going on in Waco?
Sure. Waco is pretty much right in the center between Dallas and Austin, roughly hour and a half drive from either place. And I say Dallas, I should say DFW because 35 actually splits just a little bit north of Waco, with 35E going into Dallas and 35W going into Fort Worth. So really easy to get anywhere in the DFW Metroplex or down to Austin from Waco.
All right. And then this particular property, where does it sit in Waco?
Yeah, so this is kind of in the southwest part of Waco, just off of Valley Mills Drive. A lot of people will know Baylor University is in Waco, so that's up kind of northeastern part of town. But this is really, it's a great location. It's one that's seen a lot of development recently. So if you can maybe see on the map there, just to the left of the property, there's an Aldi grocery store. That is pretty much brand new, just went in. Just a little bit there to the north, there's an H-E-B that's been there just a couple of years. We've recently seen redevelopment of McDonald's, KFC, Burger King right in the area. There's a Chipotle that's just gone in. A couple of banks have just basically totally redone their buildings. So a lot of development has been going on right in the immediate vicinity of the property. Really a hot spot.
What would you say sort of tenant base for this property? Is it students? Is it grad students? Is it
Yeah,
what's
really,
the tenant mix?
really no students. It's really working class folks. Kind of a C deal in an area that's moving up pretty quick. They might occasionally have one unit that's leased out to a student, but really not a student population at this property.
Okay, great. So let's talk about, here's some exterior photos.
Mhm.
Talk about sort of what the seller's done, some of the
Yeah.
some of the amenities on the property so far.
Sure. Yeah. So the seller has really tried to keep the property up, and we can talk about it in just a second. Hasn't done a whole lot in terms of improvements per se, but has tried to keep it in really good shape. So landscaping looks really good. He's actually replaced all the roofs within the last couple of years. We mentioned there's 9 new roofs that actually completed in 2020, but all of them have been replaced in recent history. You have an on-site leasing office that's attached to one of the laundry facilities. There are a couple of laundry facilities on site. There are also 2 pools. There's a fitness center. So it's got some nice amenities to it in addition to the good location.
Great. So here's some of the interior photos. Have
Yeah.
they upgraded units, or what have they done so far in the interiors?
Well, so they would claim some upgrades, and they have done a little bit as far as the faux wood flooring. A lot of the units also have two-tone paint. That's where it stops for most of the units. What they would consider an upgraded unit would also have maybe some cabinet pulls in the kitchen and updated light fixtures. What you're not going to see a lot of is those black appliances. In fact, those are in just a couple of the units. So I would say still a lot of opportunity through updating appliances, resurfacing counters, possibly painting cabinets. A lot that can be done to improve the interiors for sure and get the rents that go with them.
So when we talk about just to round out, sort of get an idea on the property,
Mhm.
so you have
Yeah,
individual HVAC, the roofs were recently done. How
right.
are they managing the property now? Is it third party? And then how many
Uh,
staff do they have there?
It is third party. Yeah. So it's a local company based out of Waco, Cromwell Management. They've been managing there for 40 plus years. Probably do a little bit more in the single family space than multifamily, but seem to be doing a pretty good job with this one at this point because it is, as of today, 99% occupied. They do have a total of 4 staff that they have had on site, generally speaking. So that's one property manager, one leasing agent, a lead maintenance, and an assistant maintenance.
Okay. And then, so the tenants, um, do they pay electricity or how do you,
It's
yeah.
almost all bills paid. It's
Okay.
a little bit different from what we typically see. So tenants are paying 20% of the water. So it is being billed back, but it's a very small amount. So that works out to probably $10 a month. It's basically being run as all bills paid.
Okay. And so there is a laundry contract on it now, but
There is.
it's almost up in 3 years or
Yeah,
so is what.
right.
Okay.
3.5 years left or so.
Okay. And then the CapEx, so the sellers owned the deal for about 5 years.
Hmm.
So we talked about the roofs. We talked a little, so the
Right.
interior of 350, that's,
So that's really switching out flooring and painting.
all right, flooring, painting, some leasing office. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, all right. So, I mean, I think it's 99% occupied. So maybe talk about how the new owner comes in, adds value to this deal.
Yeah. Well, so I think there's a few things. I mean, one is, and we can look at the rent comps in a second, but I do think there's some upside in the rents just as is. But certainly through unit interior upgrades, I think that's going to be a big thing. To me, this deal is really just right in the middle of the fairway for most investors because it is stabilized, well occupied today, but there is some really nice upside that way.
Okay.
So I would say certainly you could do the kind of updates they've typically been doing where you keep the white appliances, but you're spending about $3,000. You're getting a $50 a month premium. Another option though would be to go even higher end, maybe go to the 4 to 5,000 range, switch out the white appliances for black appliances. Again, maybe do some of the resurfacing of the countertops and painting of cabinets. I think that's going to help you push your rents up to probably at least $100 a month, maybe even 125 for each unit.
Okay. So interior
Um,
upgrades and then
yeah, and,
reserve
and
parking is the second thing.
reserve parking, yeah, absolutely. No reserve parking on site right now, and I think there's certain areas on the property where parking is relatively high demand, and so it would make a lot of sense to go ahead and implement that. We certainly see that at some of the competing properties, so I think it makes a lot of sense. And then the other thing, the third one that I would say is really big is basically billing back those utilities. So switching from the all bills paid model to tenant pays.
And so have they done any water conservation on the property?
They have not done any water conservation at this point. They have maybe a handful of toilets that have just had to be replaced and might be low flow, but certainly no program. So I would say working with a water conservation company would make a lot of sense. Probably able to lower that water bill by about 40%. That's the estimate we've heard.
Okay, great. And so here's a little bit more detail in the OM, just about the different items there. Let's talk about sort of where you could take rents, where rents are today, if
Hmm.
you didn't do anything. I guess this is just sort
Right.
of if
So
you
that's
mold it to market.
right. That's kind of the assumption right here is no unit interior upgrades. Let's just take a very conservative approach. And what kind of rent increases could you get today? And we feel like the rent increases we've laid out here, relatively small, but very doable just based on how the property sits currently.
Okay. And then let's talk about the rent comps. If you were to
Yeah.
pull out maybe one or two
So
here.
yeah, I think the one that I would want to focus on most probably is actually Richland Springs. I would say very similar property and a little bit of an inferior location, and yet it's achieving significantly higher rents per square foot. So I think that really paints the picture of where this property can go. Obviously, you've got some other great properties right in the immediate vicinity that are also getting significantly higher rents, again, pointing where it can go. But I think, Richland Springs would be a bar that should be easy to hit.
Okay, so someone could keep it all bills paid, especially if you reduce the water
Right.
expenses. That'll just go back to you.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, $800 currently, and average rent in Richland's close to 940, 950. So pretty good
Right.
gap there.
Yeah.
So I guess how does that all translate into the pro forma for the investor?
Yeah. So looking at the pro forma, I mean, obviously one big thing is increase in GPR, but in actual collections as well as we're raising rents. But then also through reducing expenses through water conservation, I think that's going to help a lot. We are trying to be really, really conservative on here as we look at the real estate taxes. We know a lot of investors are sensitive to that, and so we've basically assumed that they're going to come in about 90% of sales price.
Okay.
That's probably overly conservative, but we want to be on the safe side.
All right. So there's really two ways to look at the deal. The current loan on the
Hmm.
property is the Fannie Mae loan that we put on
Right.
there, and it's about $6
Yep.
million today, and
Right.
4.94%. It's amortizing,
Hmm.
and it has about 5 years left. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
with 5 years left to maturity, you're not going to be getting a supplemental on it right now.
Right.
So what's the whisper price if I assume the loan?
Yeah. So if you're assuming the loan, probably around 10.5 million,
Okay.
I think
So
is yeah, good
about
spot.
right. All right. And then
Yep.
if I do new debt, what's
Yeah.
the what's the new debt price?
Sure. So obviously, with new debt, terms are a lot more attractive. Probably around 12 million.
Okay. So you can buy it for 10 and a half with the loan assumption of 6 million,
Right.
or you can come in and do a new loan. So
Hmm.
we did some underwriting on, we looked at it, Fannie Mae, because of the size, you're not going to be really able to get Freddie SBL on it. So Fannie Mae,
Right.
they have a green program out right now. So it sounds like the water savings you can
Hmm.
get there. So if you're able to qualify this deal for green, you'll be at 9 million. And then if it's non-green, it's a little bit higher interest rate. It'll be about 3.4. And right now, Fannie has a 12-month P&I interest reserve, so you'll be at about 465,000 on the reserve. That will be typically
Hmm.
released after 9 months. So as long as you're able to keep the debt service coverage above 125, you'll get that money back in about 9 months. And
Yeah.
so when we underwrote the deal, we used T3 on net rental, historical other income, 3% management fee, G&A, advertising, professional fees was about 250, payroll at about 1100, utilities were T12. We just kept it flat. R&M we have a little bit higher, just in line with the historicals. Insurance we kept in line with historicals, and in taxes we actually brought up to only about 65% on this quote. So this will come down to the appraisal. So if the appraisal comes in significantly
Hmm.
higher, then you might, hopefully we can make it up somewhere else in the expenses. But we're targeting about $8.5 to $9 million
Yeah.
loan on this transaction. So you're right in about that 75% range. And
Right.
on Fannie, we're getting about 2 to 3 years interest only at that 75% range. And so, how's the cash on cash going in, Sean, on that
It
deal, at
it
3%,
looks
right?
right. Yeah. It looks fantastic. I mean, at those kind of rates, you're probably talking about a better than 13% cash on cash.
Wow. All right. So
Yeah.
how do people sort of set up tours, reach out to you? What's the best way
Yeah.
for them to reach out for you?
Yeah. Email or phone number right there on the screen. You can shoot me an email. Happy to set up tours. We actually have some going on this week. Still have a couple slots available, and then we'll certainly be setting up tour dates next week as well.
Okay.
And happy to set those up by phone also and answer any questions that way.
Great. So you think call for offers probably towards the end of
Towards the end
September?
of September. Yeah,
Okay.
we don't have a date locked in yet, but look for it's probably going to be a Wednesday or Thursday, one of the last two in September.
Okay. Well, we'll put a link to your website to sort of get the information on the property, and we'll also put a link for the term sheet if you want to see the debt term sheet. We'll set up a link for that as well. So thanks
Sounds
a lot,
great.
Sean, for coming on.
Yep. Thanks so much, James. Appreciate it.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks.